I think the last context setup I'd like to add into that is just like within the coaching gym, which is also what we'll be doing tonight, is it was really born out of this inquiry of what does it mean to serve another person powerfully? And what if we actually never answer that question, but we like kind of live into the infinite possibilities of what that living into that question can offer us. And so everything that we do in the gym and in these, open gym practices that we offer is in service to that. And we look at that specifically in three different distinctions, which is impact, experience, and results. So within whatever we're doing in experimentation and everything we're doing, we're looking at what does it mean to serve this person in front of me really powerfully in the context of impact, experience, and results. So I just want to add that because whatever it is we're doing that's the umbrella that we're playing within, that we're exploring and experimenting within, and we're specifically looking to see what we can see more about. And so tonight, one of the things that has been, and a lot of these offerings are like, here's some things that we're seeing people are asking questions about within the gym. Here's what we're hearing. Here's what we're noticing. And tonight, there's been a lot about enrollment lately. And, I don't, for this is one of my favorite topics. I just love it so much because I used to hate it so much. And so that my experience of going from like hating it to falling in love with it is honestly really precious to me. And I love getting to see more about it because, there's a saying I think us as coaches have, the more you see, the more you see. And like just seeing a little bit, I see more. And I'm just so intrigued to see more. So I'm really thrilled to get to bring this topic up in this specific way of we're going to look at it. Everything that we do in the gym, we're not teachers, like Katie was saying, we're not here to teach. We're here to offer sort of a laboratory with like all these different like tinctures and I don't know, elements and chemicals and stuff that for you to just sort of play with and see within your own personality, within your own style, within your own superpowers, which ones work for you better. That's what it's about. So we're going to offer this context thing to look at around the enrollment conversation tonight. And then we're going to do some breakout rooms to let you guys experiment with it, play with it on your own, see how that feels. We always encourage a huge part of we encourage experimentation because we believe in the coaching gym that no matter how impactful we are, there's always more to see. We can always bring more and not like it's a striving thing, but just in a, why not see more about this? Anything you want to add, Katie, before I share the context offering?
Nope.
Okay. So tonight, so what we're going to talk about tonight is in the enrollment conversation, we're going to talk about context setup. Okay. I wanted to bring this up because this is something that for me, I had so many enrollment opportunities, like fantastic. I would have people wanting to work with me, and then I would do it in the way that I thought I was taught to do it. And it would just go amazingly well, but there was no closing of sales. There was no exchange of dollars. And I just saw how much money I was leaving on the table. And I hired a coach who I thought I was kind of impressed. It was a colleague too. So I'd heard some of the stories of his experience and it's like, I think you have some stuff I can learn from. And before my first session with him, he sent me a recording of him sharing some things with another client. And it was so impactful for me that even before our first session, I started contracting, I started closing deals. And it was such a simple tweak that I mistook what it was until recently. And, one of the things that we kind of play around with in the gym too is we not only practice to enhance the mastery within our skill of coaching, but we also want to we offer an opportunity to look at what are the business systems of developing a career as a coach. One of the sayings we have is every system is a perfect system for the results it gets. So if there's any results in your business, whatever that is, that you want to be different, it's worth taking a look at what the system is that's creating the current results. And one of the things I often find, with all my clients I work with, whether entrepreneurs or coaches, is that usually if you're getting some results, it doesn't even matter if they're like minute, tiny results. It's typically not that you need to create a whole new system. It's usually just a subtle minor tweaks in the system that will help you get greater results. And this was the example for me, because there was a lot of things I was doing great, but what we're going to play with tonight was the linchpin that had me go from spending a lot of time doing enrollment conversations and not closing deals to having almost all of the conversations that I had end in a contracting. So that's what we're going to play with tonight. So I'm just curious, before I share like the specifics of it, like you guys, I think all of you are coaches. Do any of you guys, I'm curious if you suspect what we're going to talk about tonight. Have any hunches, or like, oh, given that, here's what I see.
No, but I want to know what the small tweak was that you made.
Yeah, I'll tell you in just a sec, but anybody else have I'm curious. Curious what's coming up. No?
I want to say something about really maybe having some sort of a loose system, but also curating your offer to what the person is actually saying that they need help with or something. I don't know. Just making stuff up here.
No, I love it. I think that's great.
I think where a lot of coaches struggle and where a lot goes wrong is when people talk about money. And so if there's any small tweak, or where I think people need the most work is when they actually talk about money. And can you do it in a neutral fashion? Can you do it in a way that's clear and is not emotional and doesn't bring in your own stuff? So my guess is it has to do with the delivery of your fees.
That's a great one. It's not it, but that's another great one. And this does have a subtle something that actually makes it easier. But yeah, I totally agree with you on that. All right, should I just lay it out now?
The suspense is killing everyone.
The thing is, this is so freaking simple. And when I say it, you guys are going to be like, well, duh, I do that already. But I think the fact that, I think it's worth taking a closer look at just to see what being more deliberate with this can create more ease with. And what this is you guys are going to die how simple it is. It's just context setup. That's it. That was the one thing that changed everything for me. Now, as simple as it is, the complexity of it can come from how adept we are at seeing what is unseen and speaking to it. But that's what we're going to play with tonight. And this is so that's sort of where I think our depth with this, the more we see about this, can really create more and more ease with us, especially with enrollment. And, Matt, I think what you're saying, I think especially I want to kind of highlight that once we play with this, I want to bring this back to money, because I think there's something really applicable to that would be fun. So let's play with it, and then we'll circle it back to money. I say.
Well, one of the things that I've been noticing a lot of about in the gym is sometimes we'll have a topic and we'll say, okay, people really struggle with this. And it's often that there's sort of a secret step before what we suspect the first step is, that's actually really important that a lot of us miss, and to me, setting context is kind of one of those steps. It's like, okay, so I get, I set up the conversation, then, okay, I've got kind of a structure for what I'm going to ask in the conversation. And then, okay, and then there's a point where I don't freak out and I ask for money, and it's like, okay, that's great. But maybe there's something that comes right before that, and if we get kind of curious or suspicious about that, there's been so much cool stuff that we've been seeing in the gym. And I feel like this is kind of one of those places. It's like, it can be very easy to skip the step of setting some context because we get so excited to kind of like dig in or start talking to the client or start hearing what's up for them or hearing their story, but I think really what we're going to look into tonight is how powerful of a space, how much different the space is opened up for that conversation when context is set. And the cool thing about context is it doesn't have to be a blanket context. It's not like we set the same context for even every client or every coach has the same thing. And that's where we're going to really play tonight.
Yeah. And I think this comes with why this is so impactful is because it acknowledges that we all have separate realities. And, before this, this was sort of like when I applied this, I'm going to call it a practice because it really was a practice. It was a practical application where I could acknowledge separate realities and do something productive with it that actually moved the conversation in the direction of its intentions. Before I did that, to be honest, I just wasn't acknowledging separate realities. And by the way, since I've done so much work on, spiffing up my separate reality, mine's better, just come along with me. And I just would, let me convince you. Okay. Sometimes that actually worked. Sometimes it didn't, but it wasn't, I did it innocently, but seeing more about it, there's much more powerful ways that I can serve somebody than dragging them into my better reality. And so, so there's like, and if I really want to serve somebody, I don't like serving them as helping them do better in their world, not my world. So I've got to have a little bit of a container and space to, how do we sync up? Given that we have separate realities, how are we going to have this conversation in a way that I can serve you powerfully? And that would be sort of my invitation for tonight, is for us to consider opening up a space for that. And even have like an infinite curiosity around, how can I do that? How can I do it even more powerfully? What's more impactful around that? What helps produce more efficient and seamless and enjoyable results around that? But the bottom line is it acknowledges that. So that's really what I want to offer within that.
I'm going to just add one more thing, Demi, which is that a lot of what we've been cultivating and getting curious about in the gym around this is we've been giving it the umbrella term of effortless enrollment. And so we all know that you can enroll people without a context. Like there's plenty of ways to get clients, and there's as many ways as there are coaches out there. We're not supposing that this is the be all and end all best way, but it feels very effortless. And that's what, is kind of a clue to us that it could be something that's valuable to others, because there's something about creating of these contexts that just creates more space to just be able to be into, as opposed to, sometimes this fighting upstream, which can be a feeling that a lot of coaches have shared with us that they kind of feel when they're getting into maybe a very first meeting with a potential client. And again, if your reality is different from theirs and there's no way to bridge that, it can feel very effortful.
Yeah, and I think it's worth distinguishing what we mean by enrollment also, because I have an assumption about what that means to me. But my experience of distinguishing enrollment has been an evolution of decades of being very invested in a personal development atmosphere. But I really don't know what your journeys have been around enrollment. I'm actually noticing that I was making an assumption because I know you're all great coaches. So I'm assuming but I don't really know. So if we're going to look at, what serves, how can I serve somebody powerfully in an enrollment conversation, we ought to look at what enrollment is. And so I would, before I offer my distinction to you guys, I'm curious if you have your own already. And if anybody has one they want to share. You can share it, you can raise your hand or just unmute and share it or type it in the chat.
You mean definition? How we define enrollment?
Yeah, what does that mean to you?
That they're gonna invest in themselves or invest or do what's necessary. Let's just say that, because it's not always a invest time, energy, money, to go on a ride, to go on a journey, to allow me to guide them. So, yeah.
I like that. Anybody else?
Yeah, what's coming to me is inviting them into a greater possibility of themselves.
I was just going to say that the two words that are coming into my head are buy-in, where they are seeing a vision for themselves that matches even with our separate realities, that on some level we are in sync and that they have a buy-in to what I'm proposing, that journey that Matt was talking about.
Yeah.
I think I want to refine mine a little. Inviting them, I'm not sure how to say this, but it's like there's a no-brainer aspect of it. If it's done my job well, it's like, oh yeah, it's a no-brainer to say yes to the invitation of the greater possibility that we're talking about in that conversation. I know that wasn't said very articulately, but I think you can get what I mean.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah. I mean, I'm loving all of this. I feel like we could spend the rest of the hour on this, but yeah. Cool.
Erica, you.
I was just going to say, Bernie, I am so exhausted from a long day. So nothing I say this evening will be articulate. So I guarantee you will sound far more articulate than me this evening. And I think you said that very well. Like what you said makes a lot of sense. So. And yeah, Demi, you're right. I feel like it's like the simplest questions, or that seemed simple at first. We could just go on a whole thing about that. It's really interesting. I haven't asked myself that question before because I also just assume what I think it means. So,
Well, what I'm seeing about enrollment right now, and it's just prompted by some of what you guys are saying too, is almost like starting with you and the client seeing the way that you see. And it's almost like this journey where that melts a little bit, mostly for the client, but partially for you. And you're able to co-create and hold a vision for them that goes from looking impossible to looking like, wait a minute, just maybe, and it's almost like a shift, like it's got shifting of perspective. It's got like all the good stuff from the hero's journey sprinkled in there, but it's like being able to take something that looks solid and put a crack into it. Like take someone from, well, I've never been able to do this myself, but I'm so annoyed that now I'm looking for someone, maybe someone can help me, and bringing them to a place where they can see possibility.
I love that.
Yeah.
The way you described that, Katie, was like, I just had a sense of like, it's almost like it's like right there. Like it's already just in that conversation alone, the vision that they're wanting, like you said, there's sort of a melding that's happening, but not just between the two people in the conversation, but like a melding where with their vision for what they want for themselves. Like it's just in this conversation, it's like they already have it because they do, right? Like it's like it is already, that reality is already alive within each of us. So and then I think that, I mean, I even feel it in my energy right now, just thinking about that, like that energy is what makes me, when I've ever signed on to work with a coach or anybody, feel like, oh my God, yes, like what Bernie was saying before, like, yes, take my money, please, you know, and my time and my energy, because I'm already right there. I can feel it. It's so close, I could taste it, kind of thing.
It's almost like this dance where like you're coming in and you're like, I know you have a vision. I don't know what it is yet, but like, let's pull it out of you. And the client's like, yeah, I probably have something in there. Like, wait, let's see what it is. And then at a certain point, you both kind of see it. And then you help them just like kind of like work it up into something that's so much more possible than this little seed that they've created. And it's almost like if you don't help them see it and they aren't seeing it and they're not in the energy of it, you have no business proposing because like what are you proposing about, you know, like until they can see that, like that possibility for themselves, you know, that's because that they're investing in themselves, they're not investing in your ability to pull it out of them. And so when that becomes clear to them, to me that's the point where it's like, okay, you've been enrolled, you know, it's like you've bought in, like you said, to this vision. I can now see what it is, you're now aware of it too in a bigger way. And like, is this sufficiently large and audacious that we could actually contract around this?
Rosanna, did you have anything you wanted to add on that or what you're saying?
A word that came first was agreement, like agreeing in something. And now, as I was listening to Katie, I thought it's like dating. And you want to continue dating because there's something is sparked in you that, oh, this can take me to a good place. So yeah, that's what was coming.
I like that. That's a good metaphor.
Yeah, I've loved everything that all of you have shared. I think it's all, I think I mean, the word enrollment for me is just so juicy and loving. Like it's packed with, you know, but what I heard tonight, fresh and new, just from listening to you guys, and this emerged from so pretty much something of that all of you said, but what I really saw is, what's the enrollment opportunity? If I'm going to be enrolled, like if you're going to invite me to a discovery session to enroll me, it's almost like I'm already right there. Can you help me see it? Like that feels like what's on offer. There's something already alive in me, but I can't see it. Can you help me see it? And then I loved what you said, Rosanna. Then it's like dating. It's like, okay, I can see it. Is this something I want to continue dating? This is what's alive in me. Do I want to continue moving forward? And, you know, I fell in love with the idea of enrollment through Lynn Twist. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of her. She wrote a book called The Soul of Money. I read it years ago, and she was one of the earlier coaches that I worked with. I just loved this woman. And, you know, she changed my whole concept of enrollment. Because before I thought sales was something I wasn't good at, didn't want to be good at because of what it meant to me. But she said to me that this is like, this is my quotette. It's my adaptation of what she said to me. But she said, you know, Demi, when enrollment is done from a heartfelt place, it always ends in a yes. 100% of the time. Now, they may not buy your product or service that you're offering, but you will always help them see what's alive in them and what's next for them. And that became like, that transformed my everything. And so a lot of like that really influenced, as we talk about context setup, a lot of my context creation that I came up with for enrollment is in service to that. Because I that's something I can get on board with. That's something I can offer to anybody. Like, my job is just to help you get clear on what you want and what's next for you. The net, you know, if I see that maybe us working together might help that, then I can make that offer. But it may not even be what's needed. I don't know until we find out, until we both see what that is. So that was really helpful. But so I mean, here's also what's coming alive for me. And I don't know if you guys are seeing this. Let me know if you're not, and let me know if you're seeing it in a cool new way that you want to share. But doesn't enrollment seem like one of the most generous and kindest gifts we can give to anybody?
Yeah, just to give somebody your undivided attention these days and really listen and have their best interest at heart is like rare. So yeah, it does feel like a huge gift to give someone and to receive if you're on the receiving end.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, Bernie, it's like you're
I'm
gonna.
I know I'm struggling with this because it's like, I think I'm putting my self-interest in there. It's difficult, or at least it's difficult to kind of like just really set aside. I can be in service, but it's like the back of my mind is, oh, this might lead to a client, this might lead to money coming my way. And it's like I can't create that complete separation. And if I could, okay, let me just feel into that. Oh, I mean, I love the way you said it. It's about helping people see what's possible for them in a way that's the gift of the conversation. They see something that's possible that they hadn't seen before. That's something, that's a beautiful gift. Yeah.
And the truth is, that may be all they need, in truth. We can't know if that's all they need, or extra support would be helpful. We don't know until that gets discovered.
Right.
I'm also kind of curious though, Bernie, like isn't it kind of cool that both can be can coexist? You know, like that you can be sitting in front of somebody and being like, this is so cool that I just get to sit here and actually tap into like, how can I really serve them? And it's possible that if things go a certain way, I could make money by offering them this beautiful service. Like what if we could hold both lightly with love?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's Steve Chandler says, yeah, I need to sign up clients, but I never need to sign up the person who's right in front of me. And I don't know, this is probably just a bit of my stuff that it logically makes sense, but I think I'm not able to hold that really cleanly.
Demi, I suspect that this exercise might actually help with this.
I was just thinking the same thing, Katie. I was like, let's jump in, because I have a feel like, because I don't know which came first for me, the chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
Might have been that, you know, this coach helped me see this possible creation of a context. And in that creation, I was like, I fell into this really delightful space of not needing, being able to separate those two. So
I noticed that Matt's unmuted, so I'm curious if you have something to add.
The only thing I would say to Bernie is, I think it's just an awareness of where your state is. And so it's like dating. If you're in front of the person, could I marry them? Where is this going? It's all future state. Are they no different than, are they going to pay me money? And so the invitation would be, can you just drop into the present and be with them right here which will automatically unattach you to what could come. And then I think you'll drop much more in. And then the second thing is just load your calendar with conversations of falling in love with people's dreams. And you'll also be forced to drop into the present. Because yeah, everything there is future, no different than sitting in front of a woman or man and saying, where's this going to go? So I don't think it's a you thing. I think it's a muscle, which we've all faced. I have equally. It's a muscle just saying, I'm going to be right here with whatever shows up. I'm not going to be over there.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm talking about this, even though I know when I am in that conversation, I am that presence. I'm not. So maybe I'm just dragging it into my psyche right now when actually when I'm in that conversation, I'm there in service. I'm really present with it.
Yeah.
Really beautiful catch.
You know, I love what is coming up because this whole idea of context creation, Bernie, like I didn't realize this until reflection, but the context creation is not just for setting up for the client, it's for me setting up for myself to be able to serve them powerfully.
Yeah.
So, and you know, I love that Rosanna, you're here because we had a great example in the gym. Rosanna, do you mind if I share? You know, because it was really cool. It's a beautiful, simple example. But Rosanna was coaching another woman in the gym, and she kind of dropped in and she said, you know, I have a language, but the English is not my first language. So would you mind speaking a little slower? Okay. And it was one of the things that the session was just so gorgeous. And we were like, oh my gosh, you should always coach not in Spanish because it's like the superpower that you have to slow people down. But what we really also acknowledged that we loved is that Rosanna took a moment to just check in with herself, to notice what was in the space between her and this other person that might interfere with her serving them powerfully, and then speaking to it and asking for a request that handled it. That is all that context creation is. And tonight we just simply want to play with, you know, slowing down to take a moment to consider what are the common things that are in the space between me and another person when I'm in an enrollment conversation. And by the way, you could translate an enrollment conversation for a conversation with my spouse or my children or whatever. But tonight we're looking at enrollment. But what are the themes in this dynamic that have it tend to go sideways or lose impact or not be as powerful as it could be? And then what could I speak to? Like, what could I request that would change the dynamic for me such that I could serve more powerfully? Or what might I be able to get curious about might be in the space for the other person that would help them show up in a way that I could serve them more powerfully? And what's so cool, like this is the thing that in helping clients do this over the years that I see is like, it is so simple because guess what? All of the clues are in our past experience. All the clues are in what's been happening for us. And if you just kind of look at that with more curiosity and less taking it personal, like it just starts to become obvious. Well, oh, I could ask for this request. I could do this. Like Rosanna, that's what I love about your example. It was just intuitive. Just knew that there was something that if she requested, it would change the dynamic and such that she could serve more power. Okay. So we're gonna kind of do some breakout rooms where you guys will have a chance to kind of play with this and workshop it a bit. But I want to share with you an example of the context that changed my enrollment experiences. And I had no idea. This is just an example of like, oh my gosh, it was just a simple little thing, a tweak. And it went from the difference of me leaving thousands of dollars on the table to me contracting for hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, and it's, and what it is I just spoke to what was going on in my head is I heard this, it was from Rich Litvin. I was in his community and his 4PC community. And it was like, his motto was, all you have to do is serve people very more powerfully than anybody ever has. Some will turn into clients, some will refer clients, and some will turn into other things. At my level of grounding, when I heard that initially, I just took that and thought that meant time. That's what I meant. So I would just keep coaching people, and I had this people pleaser thing and this weird thing with money. And so I would have these conversations and I just coach people. And I was like, well, I don't know about contracting yet. So would you like to have another conversation? Sure. I just go on like all these dates and never propose, right? So the context that this coach helped me see was, well, what if you spoke to that ahead of time? So we came up with this. So, and I had different context things that I would do to help my nerves calm down. I was very nervous, especially when I started contracting for high fees. So I had this little practice I put in place that handled that. But what I did is I said, so this was a lot of times in, when I would bump into people in the world that had an issue that I thought a coaching conversation could help, I'd say, well, would you like to have, I kind of help people in that way. Would you like to have a conversation? They'd say yes, and we'd set it up. So then there was this, well, what's this conversation about? Are you gonna, am I getting charged for this? Are you gonna try to sell me something at the end? What's the point of this? That was just kind of in the air. Now, before I spoke to it, I felt it, I sensed it, and I was trying to manage it within the call. And it just made things complicated. So the difference that I made is I just spoke to it. I'd say something like this. Hey, after I connected and we did my little calm down awareness practice and, all of that, I'd say something like, well, is it okay with you if we just take a little time to just kind of look at the context of this conversation? It's my intention to serve you as powerfully as I can today. I have a few requests for agreements of how I think that might go better. Do you mind if we take a moment to look at those together and see what you think of them? I've never had anybody say no. And then I'd share those things. And I'd say, how does that sound? Is there any requests you have that will enable this conversation to be more useful for you? We look at that. And I say, then I speak to this, this call usually ends in a few different ways. The first is that you might say, wow, that was really amazing. I'd love to work with you. What does that look like? What does it cost? Or I might be really inspired by what you're up to and say, hey, I love what you're up to and I'd love to explore supporting you. So either way, if either one of us suspects ongoing work together might be helpful, we can have an opportunity to look at that. If that's what we want to do, we'll schedule another time to do that. Or two, we might say, this is a great conversation. Can we have another? And thirdly, I might call coaching a no for now. Now, I'd only do that if I suspect that something would be more impactful and powerful for you. I've even been known, and this is very true, I've even been known to refer people to another coach if I think that it'd be more supportive. My intention in this conversation is to help you get really clear on what it is you want and what the next step is. I'm unattached to that being working with me, and I'm not opposed to it either. But this conversation is just to support you in getting clear on that and identifying where you want to go with it. So here's what happened for me when I said that. I put the idea of talking about money, exchange, contracting, working together, I put it in the space. So if I didn't speak to it at some point, it would be weird. Before I did that, I didn't know, my head was like, when do I talk about this? Blah, 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 all that, that kind of stuff. So if I put things in the space and even just mark it that, hey, we'll talk about this later. We will have a time to do this. I'm going to make sure we do. If I don't do that, I get wobbly. But this is just an example of me coming up with the things. It's in a weird way, like in separate realities, like we know, like who we are. is infinite, like we're pure intelligence with a human mind who doubts it. So in a way, this context creation is my own concoction of how to work with my human brain in a way that it's not going to get in the way of serving you powerfully. What do I need to set up to do that? So we're not offering, that's why we're not offering the like, hey, here, do this, say these things, because your reality isn't the same as mine. But we all have different things that can create interference. And if we can reconsider those and offer something inside of the context creation that enables that to not get in the way so we can serve powerfully, like how beautiful is that? How generous and kind. So should we do that? You guys want to do that?
Do you guys have any questions, or are you, yeah, I mean, we haven't really outlined exactly what we're gonna do yet, but is anything you need handled at the moment?
Yeah, I think I was struck, Demi, by you talked about this might lead to basically a contracting conversation. I'm not sure the phrase you used, or it might lead to a continuing the conversation, or it might. I think the way I heard it was, or I might say no to you.
Yeah, I said I would call coaching a no for now, and I like, look, this is my concoction for my brain.
Right.
This is how my brain works to put people at ease and put myself at ease. But I said I might call, like, just to let you know, like I'm not actually here to manipulate you to just give money. Like I'm not gonna, and it's very true for, I have referred people to other coaches that I thought, so it's all of this is true and sincere to me, but it's, I would only call coaching a no for now if I thought something would serve you more powerfully.
Right. But you didn't put, what I didn't hear is you putting in the space that you might call it a no to the client, to the prospect.
Oh, that is what I meant by that. I said I might call coaching a no for now.
Right. You might call it, but
Oh, you mean the client may say no for now?
yeah.
Yeah.
You
I
didn't
didn't
list
do
that as one of the
that.
options.
I didn't do that, but you can.
Right.
If that feels like that wasn't something that occurred to me, but it doesn't mean that it wouldn't be. Like my whole point is anything that's helpful that clears the space for you
Right.
and for them.
Okay. Yeah.
And we as the
And-
coach are kind of leaders. And so we can kind of lead by example. We're first noticing what's here for us. We're making requests and agreements, or speaking to in a way that helps us get to more neutral. And in a way, I kind of feel like it models something for them to also make requests, or at least open up that curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about what we say. It's about that we take a moment to notice what's in the space and do whatever it is that occurs to us to clear it. And I call that context setup. That's my word for it. That's my languaging around it. You don't have to use that one. You can make up whatever yours is, but I would like mark, I mean, it's been very helpful for me to mark it so that it's something that I can notice and do something with if necessary.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Matt, were you going to say something?
I just need you to bring it back on if this goes left. But I'm fascinated by why Bernie feels that he needs to say that. I'll come from my frame. The only reason I would say that is if I believe that they didn't know that they were at choice. So I would never say it. At all times, they can say no. And so I just became fascinated at where his context was needing to say it to remind them that they're at choice. But I don't want to go left. I want to stay with your activity. So
I'm going to ask you, Bernie, not to answer that because I might
totally.
be with you, Matt, because it might be fascinating to me too.
Totally.
But more I want to circle back to the point that it really doesn't matter what interference is coming up for us. Like, it doesn't matter at all. I really truly believe that it doesn't matter what we need to say to request to something that brings us to neutral. Because when we're neutral, we're serving more powerfully. So I mean, it's like, that's why I love Rosanna's, your example too, of, I mean, I don't know that this is very silly idea, but like, I mean, sometimes it is silly things. It's like, what do I need to be to serve you? Oh, my kid just walked in and I've got this, like, this is going to distract me. Do you mind if I handle this for a minute? Because I want to be able to be fully present to you. Like, I would only do that if not doing that would keep me from being really present to them.
That's what was beautiful about Rosanna's example is her highest commitment was serving. Her highest commitment was to be there and to do what she said she would do. And so whatever got in the way, whether it was speaking or whether it was a child or a cat, she held that as her highest. So that's why it's a beautiful example. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's yeah, and I really like the idea that I can be totally human with all my frailties and all of my, like, I don't have to handle getting perfect before I serve you. I just need to speak to whatever I need to speak to so that it's neutralized so that I can serve you. I mean, that's relieving to me. I'm really imperfect over here. I don't know about you guys. You guys all look very perfect to me, but I mean, beautiful and just like, that's what my mind thinks. Okay. Okay, so let's jump into just playing with this for a little bit, because I mean, a lot of what we're about in the gym is not just talking about it, but workshopping it. And so let's take a few minutes. I don't know, maybe, what do you think, Katie? 6 or 7 minutes here?
Are we gonna we switch?
Well, I want to take a few minutes to have you guys write down what are the things in your past experience that have made enrollment conversations go sideways for you? Or, whatever it is you want, if it's not enrollment that you want to look at, but what's the theme that keeps happening that bugs you? What's the pattern of interference? What if you had a magic wand in enrollment conversations, this could never happen again or get handled or go smoother? What is it?
We'll give you 6 minutes. Starting now.
Another thing is like, is there a consistent thought that shows up that you'd love to not show up? Another. Katie, are you timing? Forgot to start the timer. Okay.
Yeah, I did. I am. Oh yeah, I'm not muted.
Overspend that.
3 minutes and 15 seconds left, folks.
And if you had a magic wand and enrollment conversations could go this way, how would it go? And then look at what seems like it's in the way of it going that way. What? And just for right now, you're just writing down like the issues or the thoughts or the distractions, just for right now. All right. So did everybody come up with something to play with? Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to come up with, one or two context requests. So whatever this is. So I'll give you an example. This is a real live example. I did this a little bit while we were doing this, and like I thought about it and I was like, I'd really love if when I share my fees, a lot of times that surprises people. I'd really love it if they didn't just run away in fear around that. That'd be cool. So I just came that was something new I had never kind of come up with in this exercise. And so as I wrote that, like, oh my gosh, that'd be an amazing context to set up. Like, hey, you know, but I wouldn't do that probably in the beginning, but there would be a space to do that, maybe. But it's just something that, like, if I speak to it before it, I don't know what would happen. It's something I might experiment with. And that's what the gym is about. This is about experimentation. This is the place to experiment rather than with clients and potential clients. So what we're going to do now is well, in just a couple minutes, but I want you to look at your list and pick one or two things that you have. Man, I'd love it if this went differently. So what I'm going to have you do before we put you in breakout rooms, we're just going to give you a couple minutes here to look at these things and think about saying something like, hey, you know, I just want to let you know that this is, you know, typically things, when I do this, it goes this way or whatever. Hey, can I make a request that blah, 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 blah. Can we do this? So in the breakout room is a chance where you're going to get to kind of just voice it, you know, try putting it into the form of words and with another person, and also kind of hearing how that lands for them. So that that's another tenet in the gym that we're very fond of, is feedback. You know, because it's like, you know, we can get a reflection of like, how did our words land? If we can get that in a way that we can understand it, we can iterate and adapt in a way that we can be more clean with what we're wanting to share. So does anybody have any questions on that, first and foremost?
I do. Are we going in as if, like, from the top of essentially what one might refer to as a discovery session? Like, are we going to be simulating from just our lead up, like that, setting the context period? Is that the chunk that we're focused on?
If that's where you see that you'd like to kind of have things go differently, I would, you know, earlier when I was thinking about setting up this breakout room, I wanted to set it up as, here's somebody that you bump into in life. They share something with you that is a problem in their life, that is something that you know that your services could handle for them. And you simply say, you know, that's what I do. I help people with this. Would you like to schedule some time where I can support you with that? So it's that vague. Okay, so that kind of a vagueness, what would be helpful to set up? Okay, if you've already got context for that, then play with something different. Like, feel free to play with something different. Like what I did. And if I was doing this in a breakout room, I play with this. Hey, sometimes when I share my fees with people, they get a little shocked. I'm not the cheapest and I'm not the most expensive. But I really see that, you know, if you get shocked, it's an opportunity for me to serve you. I don't care if you say yes to my fee, but would you at least consider letting me, you know, consider us maybe looking at what's coming up for you around money? I love serving people around that. If you'd like to be open to that, would you consider it? I might play with something like that in this, because that's something that I just saw right now, you know, so you can play with whatever spectrum within the enrollment conversation you want to do. It's more about looking at something that typically goes one way and you like it to go another. What could you speak to such that the energy between the dynamic might shift just a little bit, that it creates more potential, more opportunity to serve? Did that answer it, Erica?
Yeah, I think so, pretty much. I guess just thinking of like where we want to dive into the conversation. What I'm hearing is that it just totally depends on what, you know, the person who's playing the role of coach is looking to see something differently about that, whatever that piece of it is. Even if it sounds like, even if it's the initial just conversation of potentially having a conversation, even if it's that bit about being able to share that you might be able to help.
Right.
Yeah. So totally. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Cool. Anybody else have any other questions before we do the breakout rooms?
And just remember, it's not the time to get it perfect. It might be the first time you're voicing this and it might come out kind of janky, but like, you gotta start somewhere. So
this is a place you can get messy. Try some new things out, experiment, and yeah. Did you have something, Bernie?
Yeah. First thing I wrote down was, I want to have more of these conversations. It's almost like, oh my God, I'm not even ready to have this this exercise because I don't think I really know what direction I want to take it, but I did come up with some things, so I'll just play and see where it goes.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. And really it's the idea of it. So you can just take what we play with. I mean, what I love about this is it's so simple. What I'm presenting is such simplicity. So you can just sort of take this, and then even as you have more of these conversations, as you notice things that, man, I wish that went differently, set a context next time, play with it, see if it goes different. If it does, keep doing it. If it doesn't, try something different. Yeah, cool. Yeah. All right.
Okay, so
You want to put a couple people in a breakout room and then keep a couple in the main room so we can.
sure. How long do you want to do this for? And are we switching? Because we just got to keep an eye on time. We don't have too much time left.
Yeah. So actually, Kitty, you can put me in a breakout room with 2 people, and then you can stay in the main room so we can both kind of be there to support, or just
Okay, so
observe.
just 2 rooms basically?
Actually, just 1 room. So you keep.
Of course. Yeah. What? Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And let's
Cool.
do. See how much time we have left. Let's do 10 minutes, 5 minutes each. And then we'll have enough time to come back and just decompress. You guys can share whatever you want to share. And so you'll each have 5 minutes to, is that too much time? Might be too much time.
It might be. I feel like we just gotta voice it and then like move on. Like it doesn't. We can come back and debrief. I mean, I wonder if even at this point it might be better just to keep everyone in the same room and just go through. But just with the
Let's
time that
I
it
think
saves.
breakout room because then we're paired up. Let's do it for 8 minutes, 4 minutes each. That way there's if you only need 3 minutes, you can have a little time for the person to share how that landed.
Okay.
So yeah, let's do, I say, let's do that.
Okay. Here we go. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Hello, ladies. Oh, you're on mute, Erica.
My bad. I was like, wait a second, the math is not adding up on the amount of people.
I totally forgot what I was so busy doing the rooms, I forgot how much time we're taking. So was it
So 8, so 4 and 4. 8 total.
but there's 3 people. Oh, because Debbie and I are just observing.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, I'll time keep. So who wants to go first?
Rosanna, you are more than welcome to, because I'm not even 100% certain where I want to jump in. So if you wouldn't mind being the brave one here, I would really appreciate it.
You're muted, Rosanna.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure either, but I'll see what comes. It's like talking to Erica, right?
Yeah, like imagine that Erica is somebody that you met at a social event and she was talking about having something going on in her life and you invited her to a coaching conversation, but she doesn't really know what it's all about. She doesn't even really know what kind of a coach you are. And you're just kind of meeting her for the first time. And there's something that you feel like would be really powerful to speak into the room at the beginning to make the whole conversation go more smoothly for you.
Okay. So, Eric, I'm really glad that we're spending this time together.
Yeah.
I don't know what's your idea of coaching. I would love to know, but I would like to let you know something. Coaching and the coaching I do is not like to fix you or to give you a prescription and to tell you what to do. I'm here with you to see how I can serve you, to listen what's going on and how could I don't know how to say this.
You're doing great.
You know that you and I have the same wisdom, and sometimes people think that a coach will give the answers, and they come like with a notebook to see, okay, what do I have to do to get out of here? So my intention is to help you tap into your own wisdom and see where it can take you. That.
I love that.
Beautiful. 45 seconds left if there's anything else you want to.
Yeah, if there's any other piece of that you want to work out.
I would just love to know more about you and see if, no, I don't know how to say this. I wanted to, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking
Yeah.
to both. But yeah, like this thing that has happened to me, that I don't mention money, or we don't mention money, but it's there in the air. Like, and then we stop and I don't know if I should mention it or not. So I wanted to, but it doesn't come now. How to, yeah. I loved what Demi said, but it doesn't come now to me. How to, that's one that really has bothered me because we've like finished our conversation and it's like, what's next? And I don't know. Yeah, but
Well, Rosa,
I'm not
I'll make a note of that, and maybe we'll create some
there.
space around it in the gym, because I think asking for money could be a really great place that everybody could, even if they're good at it, they could be better. So
And also, I think the way that you just said that, like, I know you were just like not acting as if we were in a conversation, like in a, enrollment conversation, but just the way you just voiced that of like essentially it's pointing out the elephant in the room that, sometimes, like, I know people can be weird about money. Sometimes I can, even though I feel, however you phrase that, I feel generally okay about it. But sometimes in these conversations, I get a little nervous to talk about, or like just like pointing out that, and saying whatever, but also I want to do what's a benefit to you, like whatever, however you just said it, actually, it was perfect.
Yeah, maybe, or we won't be, our attention won't be there now, and we'll see what. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I love
your
that.
turn.
Okay. And I just had it. So let me gather my thought for a second, because I was like, oh yeah, I know what piece I want to go in on. So yeah, okay. So there's something around when I am, so I'll pretend like we're in it right now, but so when I'm setting the context, when I have these conversations with people, we have about, let's pretend I just went through the agenda of it. So we have about 45 minutes to do some solid coaching. And like I already said previously, my intention is to just help you get as much clarity as possible, to help you see what it is that would be most beneficial for you. Even feel like you have a next step, that you've got that feeling like, okay, I know how I want to at least move forward with the next step. And sometimes I'll notice that, you know, I'm so intrigued by your story that I just like want to let you keep going, perhaps longer than would really be of benefit to helping you get to that clarity. And so sometimes I will interject. If I catch that within myself, which I hope to do, there might be times that I kind of cut you short, even if I so want to like be at the bar with you having a martini and like hear you finish the rest of your story. Like I might have to cut you short in the interest of what we are trying to do in this conversation. Later we can go have that martini and you can tell me all about it, but for the purpose of really helping you get that clarity and moving toward a solution, I might interject. So I just don't want that to come off as like rude or abrupt. I am truly listening to you, and I just want to help you maximize that 45 minutes that we have in our coaching portion of this call. How does that sound to you? Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's something. There's one piece of it.
Nice. We've got, well, I doubt people will come back for another 60 seconds. I'm just closing them out. But if you have anything else you want to share in that time, that one came up for me too, actually. The like letting them know that I'm going to cut their story off so that we can actually get some powerful coaching in.
And it's so hard for me to do, because also sometimes I don't think I trust myself enough to feel like I have enough information to go off of.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes it's not even just like I'm trying to be a people pleaser and not seem rude. Sometimes it's like maybe I need to keep hearing more. And I think even just having a better understanding for myself before getting into these calls of like what a great outcome would be, because we could just do some free flowing coaching and they can get some insights, but like it's kind of thinking, is it the next step that I'm trying to get to? Like I just said, I kind of pulled that out of my ass just now because I've talked about that before, but is it that, like, is it clarity? Is it some fresh thinking? Is it like, what is it? And I think that would help create the context for the coaching to make me feel like I'm getting them somewhere. So yeah.
Cool. I love it when people come back in the room laughing. That's always a good sign.
Totally. Demi, I loved what you said. I want to acknowledge that. Thank you. That's good.
Intrigue.
I know. Now we're like, it wasn't even
Nope,
recording.
nope.
We can't go
Chat
back.
room only.
Well, I'll get it out of Demi. Don't worry.
In all seriousness, actually, I think because she has mentioned it, I would invite you to repeat it around the possibility stuff.
Yeah, I will. And then I want to, if it's okay, I'd like to pass the talking stick to Bernie for just a minute, because I just feel like you didn't get his full time. So I just want to check in around and see what's so what we kind of got to is that this idea of setting context is to free our mind of whatever, to free our mind and to free the other, and to consider what might be possible or what might be helpful in freeing the other person's mind, such that we're both free to consider more possibility beyond our fears. Did I get it right, Matt? I can't remember. When people say, hey, can you repeat that? I never, like, it's always an iffy thing, but is that what you heard, or anything you want to add?
Yeah, you just spoke to possibility. You spoke to how can we create context that creates a possibility out there, and that's all I ask of you, and then it'll free me to also talk about it. So create a space for it. Yeah.
Hey, that's a great context setter right there. That's a great script. Let me write that down. Yeah. Bernie, I want to pass it to you.
So what's coming to me is, okay, I'm just going to pretend that you're my potential client, and okay. So in this conversation, I want us to explore so big that it's going to blow both our minds, and it's going to be easy to get into a space where we're playing smaller and getting more comfortable, and maybe digging into a problem that could be fairly easily resolved. And I don't want to do that. I want to play really big because then that's the kind of thing that can really create massive change for you. And that's the game I'm playing. What was that?
Sign me
I got
up.
chills. Yeah, I got chills.
Go, Bernie.
Yeah. I think, I think the only thing I'd add is adding, is that okay with you? Just checking in.
At that point, if it wasn't, they'd have to get out. I mean,
oh yeah, no, really, yeah. If it's not okay with you, yeah, like maybe we could end this conversation right now. Like we don't need to waste our time. But I think when I'm setting context, I'm always looking for agreement. That was something that was said earlier. Like, the context creation is we're using language to acknowledge our separate realities and find common ground within it as best we can, so that we can explore things and expand possibility beyond our fears. Like, so we can, in a way, it's kind of like, it's like tuning the guitar or something. Like we all, like we speak English, but we speak separate reality English. What can we do to sort of tune that vocabulary or tune it up such that we're working together more efficiently? So and Barney, I love that. And that's, what I said is one thing, but the other thing that you're doing too in setting context is what you just did, the example you gave is offering a context to expand possibility. So you can do that, like that's both. And I hadn't actually considered it that way, but you brought it up for me. It's like, it's one, we're syncing up, but two, it's like, here's the journey that I see is possible for us to go on. Does that sound like something you're up for? It's another way of like common ground and languaging, but I mean, because what you said kind of like, they could just be like, I just have anxiety and stress and I don't want to feel it anymore. But you see something so much more possible for them and you want to check in, or, hey, if this was handled, a lot becomes possible for you that is really amazing. If I guarantee that this is possible to be handled, could we explore this? Are you okay with that? Because I don't know, maybe they're like, no, I can't even consider that until this is handled. We don't know. But if we assume this and this was a no, it's like it'd be a waste of time. The whole conversation, be wasted their time and our time.
Or we can consider if that's a conversation that we want to have, because there's still some value in that. Maybe that conversation can't happen until after we've done 3 months of working on the anxiety.
Absolutely. I'll throw this out there. I know we're almost at our time, but I think this might be a context setup for 3 principal coaches. It was so helpful for me. That, by the way, I didn't see this until the very end of my apprenticeship with Michael Nill. It was like, oh my gosh, if you could have told me that on day one, I would have been, no, I'm just kidding. No, but he was doing a supervision coaching session for me that I had with a friend. And this was a close friend, and I could just see how she was misunderstanding everything. And it was an issue that she's had for years, her whole life. And I was like, if you could just get this. So what I did is I just tried to take her reality and spin it with this understanding so it could help her. It went terrible. She just kept pushing back because what I was subtly trying to do is say, your reality isn't right. It's just thinking. But she was in the experience of, this is fact. So I was in this interaction with her. So what Michael offered me to suggest, this is another example of context setup, by the way, that happens midway in a coaching conversation. It's like she was talking about all of these feelings that were coming from a person. It's like, one of the things you could do is just say, well, where do you think those feelings are coming from? Or what do you think they're telling you? Okay. From what she was saying and how we were doing this, it was obvious that she thought they were coming from outside in. So I would give us the opportunity to look at that. And if she said, well, I think they're coming from this person, then this is the context offer that he offered me. He said, well, you might say to her, I really understand that, or whatever, however you say it, but that's a really fundamental misunderstanding that's very common for the mind. Could we do one of two different things? Could we either shelf the conversation you came in here wanting and have that conversation now? Or we can have the conversation that you came in here wanting and look at that and finish that, and then schedule another time to look at this, because this is so fundamental that will help, blah, 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 whatever. But that was that was another game changer context, like offering for me, that just was like, oh my gosh. Because before I really saw that I could just take that contextual misunderstanding, create some clarity around it, and then move forward, I was struggling with that.
Can I just chime in real quick? I have to say, I so relate to that, because when I was having supervision sessions with Michael, there were some conversations where it was so evident that I was, in a very nice sounding way, trying to get them to see, like you said, that's such a cool visual. I never thought of it that way, but like where you're like kind of, it was almost like a tumbling. I pictured of like you trying to like integrate your worldview or the three principle, whatever, with theirs. And it didn't work at all. And then it was like, it was so clear. I was talking so much, which is fine. Like we know that the rules of like the client has to be talking all the time, doesn't have to apply, but it just was not effective. And he pointed that out too. And I was like, it was coming across almost like aggressive, like like I'm shaking you, like get this. It's not helpful, which I would know logically, but in that conversation, because I didn't have that context setting, I think that's like brilliant. Like that was super helpful what you just said. So thank you.
Yeah. It was helpful for me too.
Similarly, Michael has told me, I'm like, well, I need to pop their bubble. He's like, why on earth would you want to pop someone's bubble? And I was like, you're right. Sorry. Yep. Got it. That is their reality, and that might be very disruptive, come to think of it. But they would certainly need me after that.
But I think that, like, if I were to sum up, the point of what we're hoping to get across in this conversation is that anywhere things aren't going smooth in conversation, in relationship conversation dynamics, we can just notice that. That's noticeable. There's a feeling to it that is noticeable. It's identifiable. And if we can just call it out, and then we can even just call it out with ourselves first. We don't have to be able to set context in the moment of that conversation. We can do it upon reflection. And if we just, this was something that was in our breakout room that came up with Matt that was really great, is that if we can just even be in the unknown about how to set the context, but like, hey, there's this thing that I'd love it if it went different. I don't yet know how to speak to it, to have it go better. But if I can just be in this I'd love to have different, and I don't know yet, but I know I will. Like, just if we can just simmer in the unknown for a little longer, until we know, we're gonna know. It will occur to us. And when we just sort of speak to that. And by the way, here's a great context setup. Hey, there's this thing I'm noticing, and I don't know what to do about it. Does anything occur to you? It's like, I noticed this in the space, and I have no idea what to do about it. Do you have any ideas? I mean, we can do that, guys. We can totally speak to that way. And magic can happen from it.
Demi, this is making me laugh because I recommended a movie to you over the weekend. This new movie, it's called Poor Things, and it's kind of like a bit wonky. Like, I don't necessarily recommend it to everyone, but I was like, there's something about it. What is it? Like, you need to see it. And I realized that I'm realizing now it's because the main character goes through life just kind of saying what occurs to her, but like without having any thinking about it, because she's like special for some reason. I'll let you guys watch the movie if you want to. But I was like, oh, there's something about this movie. It just feels so like freeing and so clean. And like people were just like, would just follow her around because they're like, what is her deal? You know, and it's like it's the simplicity of just like speaking to everything you see with neutrality. Like it's like contagious. Like you start having conversations like that with people and they just want more, because it's like there's no background conversation going. We're taking the background conversation and we're finding a loving way to just put it all out on the table. And so more is in the space and less is distracting us.
That reminds me of the game we played in the gym last week where we did, it was called mirror coaching. And I mean, it was something that we had a suspicion about when we created a game, and I was blown away by it. But the whole idea was that it was just to see what would happen if when somebody shared something that they wanted help with or whatever, the script was, when I hear you say that, this is what comes up for me. So we were kind of giving ourselves the space to just, first of all, notice what was coming. Like, how were we being impacted by what they were sharing? A lot of it was like visceral in the body, somatic. And so we just like, I noticed tension, or there was this thought or curiosity emerged. And so we'd share what was occurring to us and then ask, I'm curious what comes up for you when you hear me say that. And then they would share. And then our script was, when I hear you say that, I notice this comes up for me. And I'm curious what happens when you hear me say that. We were blown away. It was like the most laser coaching. It was just, and people were talking about, wow, this just gets to honesty. There were things, I did an example for Katie and I was like, you're saying something so beautiful and I don't know why I'm getting tense. That could be me. She's like, oh my gosh, you just called me out. It was just this really beautiful, like in a way, we had the suspicion that if we could just speak to what we're noticing, what is, maybe this gig could get so much easier for us. Like, what if it could be so much easier? I suspect that those have been the clues I've been picking up on. I still don't, that's just what it's looking like to me over here. I don't really, it's not necessarily true. It just, so, but I think context is a way of sharing what we notice, offering a suggestion of what we suspect might bring more power into the space, and asking if they agree and being willing to hear and be impacted by what, or like, and requests. Like, it's just a way to, in a way, kind of go beyond words. Words are so limiting in conversation. Words can confuse dynamics so much. It's just a way to sort of neutralize the possibility of what we can accidentally do with words given separate realities. So more becomes possible.
Yeah, well, we're definitely at time, just a little bit over. So we don't want to keep you guys too late for those of you on the East Coast too. But we just want to extend at the gym, in the gym, we're just really seeing what we can see more about creating a space that serves people around us, the coaches around us, but also the people around us that are having coaching style conversations, which is this like a meaningful conversation that's maybe deeper than a normal conversation. And so in service to that, we're trying to come up with new and exciting ways to engage people more of the time. We've got these twice monthly webinars. We started a podcast. And we also want to extend to those of you who are not members a week free in the gym. And that can start whenever you want. And there's no attachment to needing to continue after that, but just come play with us for a week. If time is not your issue, then talk to us because we have solutions.